What an unbelievable time that we had at the Vibe Room. This was last Saturday night, November 9th. It was unbelievable. We've got the Vibe experience that is coming in April. It's going to be a full day, and then we're going to end with the Vibe Room. I had a couple of friends of mine on my drive back ask me, how did the Vibe Room go? And I said it was perfect. It's my answer a lot of times when people ask me how something goes, whether it be a keynote that I do or a talk that I do, whatever it is. My answer is always, it was perfect. And this confused a guy when I came off stage at NiftyCon, which is the #1 digital marketing conference for attorneys. I got a chance to do the keynote there. And I walk off stage and the guy's like, how'd you feel it went? And I said, I think it was perfect. And he looked at me kind of strange and like almost like, are you that pompous? And I said, for me, every single thing is perfect in the moment. And this is something my mom and my pops taught me where, it was, if a moment happened, there's nothing that you can do about it. So it was perfect in that moment. Let that past go. You can look towards the future and say how you want to make it better, but stay present right here, right now, in this moment, and enjoy what happened. And that makes everything perfect. And it takes a lot of pressure off you when you do an event, when you do a certain task. Every single thing at that moment is perfect. It's perfect based off of the preparation that you either had or that you didn't have. If I didn't prepare in a situation, you know what? It turned out perfectly based off of the non-preparation that I had. If I prepared, and it turned out perfectly. But what it did is my parents kind of freed me up a little bit. Now, not to say that I practice it all the time, because there's times where I think like, oh my gosh, what could I have done? What should I have done? All these things. And my pop said there's just 3 words that you take out of your language and make your life a lot easier. Shoulda, coulda, and woulda, right? Because what you did is what you did, and it was perfect in that moment. And in Proverbs 11, it invites us to accept the things that are, learn from them, and just keep it moving. And imagine if we could just keep it moving and not dwell on what we should have done, not dwell on where we're going, but just sit here right in the moment and say, like, you know what? I learned a lesson. Let's keep it moving. So I'm excited to bring Proverbs 11 to you today. So why don't we get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got 2 shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Just imagine if for 1 second you could take the pressure, the pressure that you feel, whether it be in your job or in your relationships, in your friendships, just in your life. Imagine if you could take that pressure off. Well, when we adopt this thought process, right, of that everything is perfect. Everything's perfect in that moment. How was your day? It was perfect. How was, the job that you just did? It was perfect. Now, this isn't to say that you can't get better, you can't look at things and constantly want to grow and things like that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is allow it to be perfect. Allow that situation to happen, and then, because you can't do anything to change it. And you could do it in the future, but take note of it, move on, let it be perfect in that moment. Welcome to another episode of Inchstones, where we take just little small bits of improvement, series of small improvements, or never walking past poor quality, as my buddy Roy Tuscany says, Kaizen, which is the Japanese word for a series of small improvements. My buddy Patrick Hummel uses that word a lot too, and he uses it in his life. And imagine this, Inchstone is just that Kaizen, little tiny things that we do put in place in our life, and then we celebrate them. Make sure you celebrate them. And then they turn into the milestones. A bunch of Inchstones piled up becomes a milestone. But it keeps us in this moment right now, right here, and helps us to understand that every single moment that happens is perfect. Now, people are going to argue with me on this one and say that my circumstances aren't perfect. Well, they are if you let them be, right? If you allow it to be. Now, I'm not saying that the circumstance in your life, as far as like, that everything is happening and it's exactly what you want, but it's perfect for that moment, and allow it to be that way. And when that happens, you free yourself in a lot of ways. The pressure comes off us, which is great. So we're going through Proverbs 11. That's the corresponding proverb, corresponding day. And, I was saying earlier that, Proverbs 11 invites us to accept things that are, as they are, learn from them, and then just keep it moving. And imagine if we could just keep it moving. My wife is the best at this. She just seriously sheds things very, very quickly. She constantly wants to get better, and she does, but she doesn't dwell on it. She doesn't focus on it and think of all the things that she should or could or would have done. And so in verse 1, 9, 18, and 20, it just said, it talked about this: seek, listen to it, apply it, and then rinse and repeat. So ask yourself, what are you seeking? If you ask yourself that, then you'll realize what you're listening to, because whatever you seek out, you'll listen to. And then when you listen to that, then you apply it, and rinse and repeat, but seek wisdom. So when you seek wisdom, which is the right use of knowledge, then you'll listen to it, then you'll apply it. And I guarantee you some results will be kind of cool, but they won't be exactly the way that you plan them to be. And that's probably the hardest thing for me as I work through this process. In verse 2 and 5 and 6 and 14, it was just a parallel. Like it wasn't a parallel, but it was just like, this begets this. So 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? So 2 plus 5 or 2 plus 3 equals 5. 2 plus 5 equals 7. Like, it's just like you take this and you get this, right? And when I looked at it in these 4 verses, it said pride equals disgrace at some point, right? When we become prideful. Doesn't mean that pride is all the way bad, but when it's used in the wrong way, pride equals disgrace. And then it just said humility equals wisdom. Sit in that. So you get to choose pride, disgrace, humility, wisdom. It's our choice. And maybe we should choose kind of wisely in this. But the more and more that we choose wisdom, the more and more that we could just be in the situation and in our mind that this time is perfect because I chose wisdom. It's not my purpose. It's not my plan. It's not my timing. It's his. And if that's the case, then every moment is perfect because he's working all things for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purpose, right? And so in verse, this one is pretty strong because it's in verse 3, 8, 10, 11, 16, 17, 21, 22, 23, 29, and 30. Watch this. He knows, like, there's no way to, and sometimes in my prayers, I was walking with a guy named Kip today and my buddy, and we were talking, and I said, we can't trick God, although a lot of times I try with my prayers. And he just kind of laughed, and I laughed. And, there's things that sometimes I'll sidestep God and not ask for or ask him to do in my life because maybe I don't want to go through that pain. I don't want to go through that process. But God knows. So think of this. He knows, you know, and they will find out. And so just to be able to keep it honest, keep integrity, same in the dark as you are in the light, right? To be able to have integrity, to be able to do the right thing. How do you know what is right? You stay in communication with God, and he'll let you know exactly what you need to do at that particular time, right? That's because when we fear him or respect him, then he'll give us wisdom. And that wisdom is the right use of knowledge. So he'll help us to be able to take all this knowledge that we get from everywhere, especially today, and then turn it into something that will give us insight. And that insight will produce discretion. Discretion will produce strength, and strength will lead us right back to fearing him, right? And so he knows, you know, and they will find out at some point. It always will. Like, there's never going to be a time where you're like, you know what, I'm going to get over on this situation and then I'm not going to get caught. It always does. Watch the movies. I watched movies growing up. I always knew the exact same story. The guy did the thing and he did it and no one knew about it. And then finally at the end, he had to pay the piper. That's generally how these things work out, right? And so make sure you do the right thing. in verse 4, 7, 19, 27, and 28 is what do you value? If you ask yourself, what do I value? Then you'll start to weigh that. That'll be your standard. That'll be your filter. So then that way, when an opportunity comes in or a situation comes in, circumstances come in, and you want to act in this way, just ask yourself, what do I value? Well, if I value integrity and if I value love and graciousness and humility, then making this decision maybe isn't in line with those things. But if I choose something that's in line with them, then with what I value, then things are going to work out better. It's such a simple process, although it's not easy. In verse 12 and 13, speaking life is an indicator of wisdom. Right? So wisdom is that you have the right use of knowledge. And when you speak life, meaning that you lift people up. You lift people up about what it is that they're doing. Use their name. I was telling my buddy Kip today, we built a multi-million-dollar company on this. And, it was headed up by 19 to 24-year-olds. But what we did is we just spoke life. That's a big part of what our culture was. And when I started my men's group here in Carlsbad on Tuesdays from 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning, we based it off of speaking life, using someone's name, using something specific that they did to inspire you, and then encourage them to do more of it. It's amazing what will happen because there's so many people in this world, and most of us lack encouragement. And when we get encouragement, we don't need the lesson. We don't need you to teach us what to do. We'll catch what we need at that time because every single second of every single day is perfect, right? And in verse 15, it asked, who are you indebted to? And in Proverbs, it deals a lot with debt, but it's not just financial debt, although that's a big one. Once you become in debt, you have the tendency to have undue, or what would we say? I was about to say undue pressure, but when you add that type of pressure to you, it's a little bit of debt is okay. Some people call it healthy debt, stuff like that. But I could tell you this, when you are free and clear, I just got my title for my truck the other day in the mail, and it is like the coolest most freeing thing in the world. When you're not indebted to things, you get a chance to be free and walk light. And so ask yourself right now, what are you indebted to in your personal, your professional, your spiritual life? And that will help you, I think, in a lot of ways. And so in verse 24, 25, and 26, generosity increases everything. So the more and more generous you are, the more and more things will increase. It's a pretty simple principle. It doesn't mean that right when you start being generous, that you'll get it back exactly the way that you gave it out. That's not the case. But the more and more generous that you are, the most successful people that I'm around that are the most sustainable are the most generous. And so when that happens, it's just, it makes things a lot simpler. In 24, 25, 26, it talks about that. And as we finish up today is something that I wrote down, and it said right is never wrong. Right is never wrong. Doing the right thing will never be wrong. Doing the right thing, doing the good thing will never be bad, right? And so do the right thing. What is the right thing? We have to look at the particular situation. How do we know? Because we stay in communication with God, and what he'll let us know is what to do in the specific time. And he'll always do it principle-based. And guess what? It'll always be in line with his word, right? And so how can we look at and say, when I said at NiftyCon, and the guy asked me, how was your keynote? It was perfect. Because everything is perfect in its moment. But how can we adopt that type of mentality and continually have that in our heart? Well, I was very fortunate because I had my mom and my pops always constantly telling me that everything's perfect in that moment. Again, it doesn't mean that you can't get better, because we always want to get better, but allow it to be perfect. But the way that we can allow that to be perfect, watch this, is just to seek wisdom, listen to it, and apply it, and rinse and repeat every day. Realize that pride equals disgrace, humility equals wisdom, and you get to choose. He knows, you know, and they will find out at some point. What do you value? Speaking life is an indicator of wisdom. Who are you indebted to? Generosity increases everything, and right is never wrong. And so when we dive into those principles, we fill ourselves up with that. We see it, we hear it, and it goes into our heart, and it overflows. And when that happens, it overflows out of our mouth, and we're speaking wisdom and speaking life, and we're breathing life into all the things around us. guess what starts to happen? We start to realize that we can't control it anyway. We can't control our circumstances. We can control the way that in which we see them. And so as we finish, like I said, is wisdom makes every moment perfect. And if you seek wisdom, you'll find that. Not through the circumstance, but through the perspective. Wisdom is the obvious choice. But it's up to you. And it's up to me to choose it every single day. Yeah. And so Proverbs 11, honestly, an unbelievable proverb. I invite you, go through and read it yourself. Dive into it. If you don't have the book, The Vibe, go grab that. Link in the bio. Inchstones is my absolute pleasure and honor. The Vibe Room, like I was telling you, the Vibe Room was an incredible, incredible experience. And people asked me about the Vibe Room too. And they said, how was it? And I said, it was perfect. And they were like, well, was it as good as the last one? Well, the last one was perfect. This one was perfect. Will it get better? And do I want to get better? Absolutely 100%. But I'm not going to take and kill the memory of what just happened because I sit in and try and pick it apart and do all this thing. No, it was perfect. Can we learn lessons? Yes. Learn the lesson. Keep it moving. Allow it to be what it's meant to be. And when you, it's amazing because when you adopt this thought process of that it is every moment is perfect, you release the past, you keep hope for the future, but you reside right here in this present moment because it's perfect the way that it is right now. So thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Inchstones, Inchstones. My name is Kelly Cardenas. Make sure you subscribe, comment, and all those things, and share it with a friend. But I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised.